What's up, guys? Welcome back from New York City and WCS America. You're watching the round of 8 Revival versus Snute Revival. Currently up 1-0. The players are ready to go. Countdown has begun, and we're about to get into game number 2 on Neoplanet S. Now, game 1 was definitely a game that I think Snute could have won.
Yes.
But just kind of lost control of things.
You know, he just got a little impatient. I think we talked about during the break. It's if you just denied the fourth, backed up, and got the Overseer to defend against the Broad Roadtrass, he would have been significantly ahead and playing out from there. But, you know, sometimes you just feel you can win the game immediately.
Yeah.
And he went for it and just came up just a little bit short.
You know, I feel like we saw that in Moonglade versus Ryung a little bit, too. Where Moonglade perhaps was a little bit impatient and was just trying to win. Remember we was doing the Nidus play, I guess?
Yes.
You know, it's a lot of interesting things to think about as far as experience is concerned, too. Like, at what point do you make that step to be like, all right, let's chill, let's make some drones, and let's get ready for the next step of this game. But here we are in game number 2, where anything can happen in this best of 5. In the bottom left-hand location, I proudly present the Norwegian player representing Team Liquid. He is Snute. Of course, very well known for that Home Story Cup championship victory, where he defeated this guy, right? I'm thinking.
I think it might have been Symbol.
Yes, you're right.
Oh, he might have beat Revival earlier.
Yeah, I think.
The finals was against Symbol, I believe.
Right, you are correct. But here is your Blue Zerg player in the top right-hand location of Neoplanet S. Representing Team Evil Geniuses, he's up 1-0. He is Revival. He has played nothing but ZVZ in this entire tournament. Which is crazy to think about. 15 games in this tournament, and they're all ZVZ for Revival.
That's a lot of games. A lot of ZVZ. Very experienced. And
yeah.
We could see that even though he was behind for a good chunk of that game, he was always calm and poised, and he knew exactly what he had to do to make that victory happen.
Yeah, classic Evil Geniuses versus Team Liquid rivalry. Of course, these guys practice together a lot. Well, probably not recently, but you know they practice in the same environment. Of course, EGTL Pro House in Korea. Snute loves it over there. He literally practices 40 hours a day, and there's not even 40 hours in a day. That's how crazy this guy is. Loves his practice in Korea. Of course, he went over there in between the round of 16 and round of 8, made that decision to do that instead of staying in New York City, so he can get back to that environment, back to the Korean ladder, and just back on the ladder grind.
Snute is perfectly capable of making a comeback here. I mean, you mentioned his Home Story Cup 6 victory, and he went like 4-0 in the last 4 games in that tournament. So, definitely capable of getting back-to-back-to-back ZVZ wins. We saw him take down Nest-T, who's Nest-T's strongest match of his ZVZ in the round of 16. So Snute clearly is very, very skilled at ZVZ. The question is Revival plays a very different ZVZ than Nest-T does. And how prepared is Snute for Revival style ZVZ?
You know, that's a great question. Of course, drawing upon, you know, game 1, it should be interesting how they kind of play out game 2. Both players wanting to go for that roach-based composition, you know, well on into the game. You know, focusing on those upgrades out of the Evo chambers. Of course, Snute a little bit later on that carapace upgrade for a very long time. But the question is, you know, it's Neoplanet S. Are we going to see similar things? Are we going to see more Ling Baneling stuff in the beginning? Because that's something we didn't see at all, pretty much, in the first game.
It's a very good point. Of course, Revival did get that Zergling speed. But he never really used it for anything. It was interesting because he got Zergling speed and it got double Evos. I almost wonder if he was planning to do upgraded Zerglings.
I think he was.
Yeah.
I think you're right on to that. He identified exactly what his opponent was doing, decided, okay, I should react by going for roaches instead of the speedlings, the upgraded speedlings.
And you know what's funny is if that's true, if the counter to his opponent going roaches to go roach yourself, that kind of means that you should just go roach from the start anyway. Right? If
sure.
If the only thing that beats roaches is roaches, then why even mess around and look at different options? Of course, it's a little more complex than that. It's all player preference as well. But Revival has shown that he loves roach play over the last, I think, about 3 to 4 series of ZVZ we've seen him play.
You know, Snute looks like he's doing a similar thing here. Skipping the speed for his lings and going straight for that layer. Are we going to see another roach timing type thing? I mean, where's the roach horn? He has a little bit of time before he has to start it, but Evolution Chamber going to be finishing up to start +1 missile, presumably. Do the same exact thing as last game. I think it's definitely doable here.
Revival going up to 4 gases, so definitely more gas-centric than Snute. Love to see what he intends to use with that gas.
Of course, Revival at this point is going to start really trying to find out what his opponent is doing. Speed, I think, is done for him, so he can start trying to scout around with those speedlings across the map, try to identify exactly what's going on, so he can react like he did last game as far as, after identifying the fast lane, after identifying the early Roach Warren, realizing that it's probably a Roach +1 missile timing attack, and then, of course, reacting by getting Roaches out himself, maybe using double evolution cheapers for upgrades on Roaches instead of speedlings. And honestly, this game is looking exactly like last game.
Very, very, very similar. Of course, Snute with the faster layer, the faster +1.
Faster third, too. You didn't get that faster third last game.
I really like that decision. If you're both going Roaches, it's pretty hard to deny your opponent's third base. We saw Snute, even though he had those advantages of the extra upgrade, the Roach speed faster, and he actually had more Roaches earlier than Revival last game, Revival was still able to defend that third base without too much of a problem, just because it takes a good bit of time to cross the map, and during that time, your opponent will be able to build extra Roaches in and have that production advantage. Of course, it's much more true in a Roach mirror than it's like a speedling situation where speedlings cross the map so incredibly fast.
And of course, it's a delayed layer from Revival compared to his opponent. Delayed speed, which means less mobility for his army. Sure, he's going to have 1-1, but what's going to stop Snute, from taking advantage of that little timing where he's going to have speed and then his opponent doesn't. And I think that's why Snute took this fast third, is because he realizes that he's going to have that map controlled because he has the faster Roaches, so no reason not to take that faster third. Now, if he wants to go a level above that and be like, okay, I'm going to take advantage of this speed on my Roaches by sniping the third, that would be huge. And maybe while doing that, because third is pretty far from the natural on Neoplanet S, perhaps send 4 Roaches into the natural expansion, into the main, trying to get some economic damage done.
We could see some of that. Snute used an Overlord to see to see exactly what his opponent was doing, so he knows Revival's build for sure. And Overlord confirmed all the times that Revival was doing. Snute going straight to the +2 weapons, not adding on a second Evo chamber this game. So focusing more on the Roach count and just strictly the attack upgrades. And we'll have to see, saving that money from skipping that second Evo and the armor upgrades, what type of advantages he's going to get to compensate for the fact he'll be a little bit behind in those upgrades.
I mean, last game, we saw that where he was a little bit behind in upgrades, but he compensated by having the better economy. At this point in time, it's 53 to 52 in economy. So it's not like Snute has an advantage in that regard, but he does have that third up a little bit faster. Now, there's a little bit of math you can do, talking about, 50 harvesters on 3 bases instead of 2. So, Revival, Snute might have a little bit of advantage there. But remember last game, he had the larva issues. This faster third, maybe it's a little bit more lava at this point in the game, which means more units on the field versus last game.
Revival really pushing the creep out, wants to keep vision along both paths of the map, sending the Queens to reinforce his attack, but Snute looks like he wants to save those Overlords.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, every Overlord is so important. Snute going to go for it, coming forward with his Roaches. Again, the upgrade advantage belongs to Revival. He has 1-1 to only the +1 attack here from Snute. Snute backing up, trying to get that concave. Roach count is 37 to 34 in favor of Snute, and he has that defender's advantage. Revival has to be very careful here, not really wanting to engage. Both these guys exchanging blows. Now we're going to have it. The Queens trying to transfuse the Roaches, but the Queens are in the front. They're going to get sniped down incredibly fast. And again, Snute, I think he has more Roaches here. I think Snute's going to be happy with this engagement. It
looks like he's getting the better of it so far. More Roaches on Snute's side than on Revival's. Revival's maintaining the battle, though he's not retreating. Snute's actually the one who's going to break ranks in full rack.
Interesting. Very interesting indeed. Of course, realizing his opponent has that upgrade advantage, might wait for +2 before re-engagement. Also, Burrow being added on once again for Revival. We saw how effective this was in the last game, but both these players continue to add on more and more Roaches. And again, Snute should have that reinforcement advantage. Let's see if he can get a good battle here, because that's kind of what he needs right now.
Revival does have a few more Roaches than his opponent, but like you said, Snute's Roaches will arrive to the battle significantly faster due to the battle being closer to his hatcheries. +2 attack for Snute is almost done. Revival still on 1-1.
Revival has to be careful coming down this ramp. I don't expect him to try to take this. No, he's coming forward. Snute does have the better concave. There are a little bit of Roaches in the back of Revival's army that aren't necessarily attacking, but Snute trying to make this work. +2 just kicked in, so if we're talking about upgrades, it doesn't matter too much, but Revival continuing to surge forward with more and more Roaches, but Revival is now down in supply, 130 to 126. It keeps fluctuating. Both players still adding on more and more Roaches. It's 21 to 20 in favor of Revival, but again, the defender's advantage is so important. Revival has to run so many more Roaches across the map, and Revival is going to be shoved away by Snute.
Wow, what a back and forth game here. Revival now on the retreat. Snute pushing forward, but as he gets closer to Revival's bases, the Roach count may swing in Revival's favor.
Remember, Revival does have burrows. We'll have to see if he can take advantage. Does he try to swing a few Roaches down to the bottom side of the map, go after the economy of his opponent? No. For now, Revival focusing every single one of his Roaches at the front door, starting a +2 missile, but Snute feels like he has an advantage. He's going to try to take advantage of his advantage, but it's not going to happen. Better concave from Revival, and now we're seeing the magic of ZVZ as far as just that defender's advantage. Like, how do you really convert after getting a slight Roach advantage? It's not necessarily doable. However, on Neoplanet S, it's a little bit more doable considering it's such a short map rush distance. But we're seeing each attacking player just get held off each and every time, which shows just how good these players are.
Neither player has yet decided to go to Hydrus. Of course, Roaches versus Hydrus, the Roaches do win. But once you get a certain number of Roaches, then most players like to add in Hydrus because they can sit behind the Roaches and utilize their higher range. But so far, it's been too action-paced. No one's really had the chance to feel, okay, we're both going to just sit back and macro up for a while. Maybe I should start adding into Hydrus to get that higher range damage output behind the Roach line. Still just Roaches from both sides. Revival saying, okay, I can spend a little bit of money, get the 2-2 upgrades on the way.
It's interesting because if you try as a Zerg player, if you're like, okay, I'm going to try to start transitioning to something, that's resources that's not spent on your Roach count. And in a game this close, where it's literally come down to a couple Roaches as to whether or not a player would push through and start applying pressure to a hatchery or pressure to the economy, it's hard to make that decision to be like, all right, I'm gonna spend some money in gas on my infestation pit. I'm gonna start advancing into Hydrus, when all your opponent is doing is making Roaches. It's like the sense where whoever stops making Roaches is going to be a little bit vulnerable. And who's to say the other player, possibly noticing that, doesn't take advantage?
And with the creep spread of Revival and the nature that Neoplanet S is one of the smaller maps as far as walking distance, that aspect of being afraid of dying to an attack is much more amplified as the rally advantage isn't quite as much. Snute now pushing forward.
He's maxed. His opponent isn't. This is as good a time as any. His opponent also has 2-2 on the way. It's not yet done. Perhaps waiting for +1 carapace, and then he'll be ahead in upgrades by an attack upgrade, but going to be backing up Revival pursuing. He's going to split up his army. +1 carapace is about to finish. Just now finishing here. This is a perfect timing here for Snute. He's still essentially maxed to his opponent's 184, and now Revival is on the run. He wants 2-2 to finish, but can Snute take advantage of this upgrade lead that he has and take this?
Snute also has so much more money in the bank, so as they both lose units, Snute will be able to reproduce more units in that production tab. You can see that here. Revival was thinking about adding Hydras, but he doesn't have a chance to add in those Hydras right now.
20 Roaches in production here from Snute, only 10 from Revival. Revival somehow, someway pushing him back. Keep in mind, 2-2 is about to finish, and a Hydra Den is on the way here from Snute. That was a situation where I thought for sure Revival would be able to push through. It looks like he had a great advantage in that battle, but deciding to back away, which was giving a Revival a chance. But if we compare it to game one, remember he didn't want to back away at all. He just kept committing. Is this an example of Snute kind of evolving in this series and saying, you know what, I'm going to be patient here?
It very well could be. Of course, he backed away to wait for the extra Roach reinforcements. Now he has them. He's heading back into action, and I think he does have significantly more Roaches than his opponent here.
54-34 in favor of Snute. That is a dramatic advantage, but he's backing away. He's waiting for Hydras.
He couldn't get a perfect read on his opponent's Roach count. If he did, he could have ran in there and probably taken a decent fight, even though Revival had a great position. These Hydras are going to be instrumental, though. He's producing more Hydras than his opponent. Both players adding them on, but Snute, once those Hydras finished up, he'll have a maxed army.
Yeah. I think he has to attack before Revival gets maxed. Because he has an upgrade disadvantage right now.
This is true. He does have the upgrade disadvantage, but the Hydra range for Snute is only halfway done. If he wants to wait for the Hydra range, Revival is basically going to be maxed, or very close to be maxed. So it's a very, very tough call for Snute. He lost last game by being too aggressive, so this game, he really can't blame him for playing a little bit more defensively. Both players are probably going to max out here, but Snute does have a bigger bankroll.
He does. You're absolutely right. That's a fantastic point. But not taking a 4th hatchery just yet. Even adding spine crawlers around. Worried about the counterattack. Also, Revival sending about 7-8 Roaches to the bottom side of the map. Those are Roaches that are not going to be in this fight. But as long as Revival can set up a good concave here, which is exactly what he's doing, there's no reason he can't go toe-to-toe with Snute. But Snute coming forward here, trying to take advantage. Range just now finishing on the Hydras. Keep in mind, Revival does have the upgrade advantage. He's 2-2 to the 1-2 of Snute. But Snute trying to make it work. Trying to send those Roaches forward to get up close and personal with the Hydras. Remember, there were Roaches at the bottom of the map that aren't helping in this battle, and that might be showing dramatically. 152 to 129 is the supply advantage for Snute, crushing through this force. Meanwhile, the Roach counterattack happening at the main, but remember last game, it decimated him. Not this game. Static defense is there for Snute. I think he might be perfect here.
He's got to be careful because his army on the offense is mostly Hydras. His opponent can remax in Roaches or reproduce Roaches very quickly, and his Hydras are vulnerable. So he's backing away from the natural, very smart move. He might even back entirely away, or he could try to snipe that hatchery then retreat.
You got to be careful. If it's Hydras versus Roaches, it's not any trade you want to make. Such a careful. This is such a difficult decision to make. But Snute now bringing forward the Roaches over. The Hydras are kind of isolated on the left-hand side, and a couple of them are attacking the hatchery to take that third hatchery down, which is huge. And more Roaches coming forward here from Snute. He's up 136 to 107 in supply. No counterattacking is happening across the map except 2 Roaches there from Revival, but that's not going to do much whatsoever. And there's the GG. Snute equalizes the series 1-1, and what an adjustment from game 1. I'm so glad this is a best of 5.
It's absolutely amazing. Snute there, just playing so beautifully there, knowing when to attack, knowing when to back away. Revival almost had him early on with the mass Roach attacks, but Snute able to defend, push back, not overcommit, and just utilize the fact that he's had a little bit extra resources to if in a war of attrition, as long as he doesn't overcommit, he'll grind his opponent out.
Smart strategical play there from Snute, playing very patient in game 2, especially when you compare it to game 1. And that sets up for a great series we have on our hands, guys. We're tied 1-1 in this best of 5. Either one of these gentlemen can still take it. Stay tuned. Game 3 coming up.